Hi folks, Jenny here, also known as New York on some parts of social media. It is November 1st and I am coming to you with my public ukulele tutorial for October. I was supposed to get this done yesterday, I did not, so I am recording it right at the top of the first day of November. You may be watching this much later, it may not matter at all to you, but I do like to try to get at least one of these out per month, and I was running a little late in October, so here it is. Um, these tutorials are what I like to call one-take tutorials because I sit down and live stream them. Now, there's often no one watching. It's okay if somebody runs across the feed. That's fine with me. My main goal is to get a tutorial up with as little video editing as possible because I'm not a video editor and I also can't afford to pay a video editor. So I live stream these as if there were a workshop or a class I was teaching you one-on-one or in person. And I invite you to comment with questions or concerns that came up that I didn't address, so that I continue to grow and learn as a teacher, and also so that I can address them if I'm able to as you learn this song. This is one that got several requests in YouTube comments even before I started teaching and before I started doing Patreon. So the first thing I have to do is thank my Patreon patrons. I have a handful of people supporting me over on Patreon. It's wonderful to get to take some time away from my other gigs that I have to do music and to get to teach and play and create ukulele arrangements for other people and also for myself as well. So thank you so much to my patrons who support me so that I can take the time to make these kinds of videos. But even if you're not a patron, and you're welcome to join us over there for a month or more, but even if you're not, I also thank you for being here. I love to make the public content as well. I'm really happy both to have stuff that's available solely to patrons as kind of exclusive perks, and also just freely available on the YouTube channel that I have up, as well as over on my Instagram. So for this public tutorial, I wanted to share a song that it's been requested in the comments that I talk more about how I played it, that I share the chords. I have already shared the chords. They're free on my website, newukenewyork.com, as well as in my public sing-along songbook, play-along songbook that we use every month for 2 mixed-level play-along jams. We also have 2 beginner play-along jams every month that are free and open to the public. I do not remember if this is in that songbook. It may be as well. The difference would just be that we would play it more simply in the beginner play-along. But please join us for one of those 4 play-alongs if you'd like. I put the information up every month on both my website, New Uke New York, and also on my Patreon in a public post that anyone can access. You don't need to be one of my patrons. So, all that said, this song is In Spite of All the Danger by a group called the Quarrymen, who did not exist for very long in the scheme of things, and you may never have heard of. You may, because it was a precursor to the Beatles. So several members of the Beatles were in the Quarrymen. I am by no means a Beatles historian, so I won't, go into all that. But I stumbled across this song in an old archival recording of it, and it was so cool that I wanted to learn to play it on ukulele, which I did. I shared the chords, and several people have asked me to share how I played it as well, so that's what I'm going to do with this tutorial today. We'll look at an early Beatles song that was actually by the Quarrymen, with members of the Beatles or people who would go on to be in the Beatles. So let me show you the arrangement on the screen. I'm going to share it on the screen here. I will not always share the chords on the screen as I'm going along, so you may want to have a copy of this arrangement yourself. Which again, you can get on my website for free on the chords page. You can also get in that songbook that I put up everywhere on Patreon. It's all over the place on Patreon in public posts as well. So you'll see there's a little bit of a notation already on here in red that I added when I was going over this song again, because this is an older chord sheet that I made, and I have learned to play a little better since I first made this chord sheet, and so I saw something that could be simpler, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, I want to show you that In Spite of All the Danger was written by Paul McCartney and George Harrison. It was, came out around 1958, and it just has 4 chords. It really has kind of like a blues progression in it that works really nicely with a simple number of chords, and they're not terribly hard to play. I'm not going to go over each chord in detail because there are a lot of tutorials out there that do that, but I'm just going to say you've got your standard first position chord shapes on this page. That's what I use for playing this song. So if you want it to sound like my cover, you can use those. If you want to get more fancy and complicated with the chord shapes, of course, feel free to move these chords and do other things with them. But we've got your standard E7, you've got your A, your your A7 one finger, and your D, which is 3 fingers. I stack mine, but you can play it any way you like. There's lots of ways to play that D shape, and other ways to play the D chord as well as with any of the chords. So it's nice to have a song that is accessible in terms of the chords, and the way that they move through the song is not terribly difficult either. There is, I'm just looking now at how the chords move from chord to chord, so we can strategize that a little bit. In fact, I'll take the chords off the screen so you can see my fingers a little more closely, because I often talk about finger placement in this part of the tutorial. When you start out the song, you're going into an E7 from the intro riff, which we'll get to in a bit. Or if you're skipping the riff, you'll just start with that E7. And you're going to go from that into an A, which is a pretty easy shift. You've got to move your index. If you're playing a left hand, as a right-handed player rather, like I am, and if you're using the shapes I'm using, you're going to shift your index finger up to your C string, and you're going to move your middle finger down to your G string and lift the other 2 fingers, and that's really all you have to do for that A shape shift. So you'll go from the E7 to the A7, which is a nice shift too, because you already have a finger down. When you're in A, your index finger is playing the A7 shape, so that's nice. And then you shift into a D. Now, one thing you can do when you're playing D, there is an E in this song, but I have talked about this before. If you're playing a song with A and D and E, you can actually switch how you play the D and play it stacked middle, ring, pinky, instead of index, middle, ring. And that can make the switch back and forth between the A and the D easier. It can also make a slide up to an E easier if you're going to be playing an E, which we're not in this song. But if you wanted to set yourself up for that, then when you switch from the E7 to the A, you would actually want to switch. No, it's not on that switch. That's still fine. The E7 to the A doesn't change, sorry. It is early in the morning as I'm recording this. You've still got that switch that you make just as we just talked about, E7 to A. But then when you play your D after your A7, you could leave that index finger there and stack middle, ring, pinky. And then you have your D. You've still got the A7 behind it. You can lift that if you want. But you can leave that finger open to then switch back into the E7, which is an easy shift to make, and even a little simpler than if you'd stacked index, middle, ring, and then have to shift that index for the E7. Does that make sense? So if you want to go from your A, A7, use these 3 fingers that are free when you're playing A7 to stack your D, and then from there you'll go to E7. It's just planting your index again and shifting your middle and ring to the C and A strings, and then you go back to A, so you shift from here. Again, that's the same shift we've already done, E7 to A, and then back to D, which is very similar to the shift from A7 to D we did earlier in the verse. So that's a nice, I was just thinking for a second, is that the verse? Is that the chorus? The chorus comes later. With the Beatles songs, sometimes the verses are very much like choruses. It can be a little hard to tell the difference. All right, so that's all the shifting you're doing. You have an E7 to an A to A7, A7 to D, and I'm going to do that alternate stack there. Then E7, A, D, back to A. And again, if you're doing that stacked middle, ring, pinky, it's very easy to leave your index open to go back to your A, or even just leave it down. When you're going from A to D to A, you don't even have to move that index finger, which is nice for economy of movement. Like, to leave that finger where it is just makes the shift back to A even easier. So that is the verse. Now when we get to the chorus, we're coming off of an A7 and we're going to D, which we've already done. And we stay on the D, and then we go to A. We've already done that shift. Again, you can use this alternate stack if that helps you. You don't have to if you don't want to. Some people will be just as fast moving from the traditionally index, middle, ring stack to an A, and that's fine too. This is really just a tip for those who would like to use it. So now we've gone from our D to our A, which we've done, back to D, which we've done. Now from D to E7, which we've done in the verse as well, back to A. We've done that as well. Oh, sorry, I skipped to a verse. D to E7, right. And then there's some knocking that happens at the end of the chorus, which we'll go over in a couple minutes when we're doing the strum. So the other sort of progression that you see, which is very similar to what we've already done, is the instrumental solo in the center of the page. Let's just look at that. Let me put us back on the screen. There it is. So there's a section here that you could certainly leave out, but it's kind of fun to play, and you can play around with some suspended chords, which I'll show you in a minute when we really do this whole section. But basically, you've got an A moving to the A7, kind of like we did in the verse, but we're not starting with the E7. And then to the D, again, we've done this progression, D to the A to E7. This is a different change, I think, than we've done yet in this song. So you've got that shift to make. And then back to A. Sorry, I keep looking at the wrong place on my page. A, E7, then the D, which if you've been playing the E7 with your index on the G string, you can slide that index finger over without even leaving the string and place it for the D. But then that gives you the traditional stack, right? So you just have to make the choice of, am I going to go from my E7 to the D with the index finger on the G string, or am I going to flip those fingers so that I'm ready for my A string, my A chord, and go on to my D stacked middle ring pinky? Either way is fine. Whatever feels better in your fingers, you can try them both. And then from the A, you go back to E7 at the end of the instrumental section. So that's all the chord movement. And again, it's only 4 chords in this song. So you're going to do a lot of the same chord movements over and over again, which is true in most traditional songs. Even if there are more chords, you see the same shapes and patterns. Sometimes, the verse is different from the chorus, or the instrumental or the bridge section might be different. All right, so how am I strumming this in general? In general, I am strumming this with a down-up, chuck-up strum, and I'll do it on the A chord. In fact, let me take this off the screen so you can see my fingers a little bigger. I'm using just my index finger, but you can strum with all fingers if that's more comfortable for you, or with your thumb if that's how it's more comfortable for you. When I'm combining strumming in a chuck, and I've got downs and ups, I often find my index is the most versatile finger to strum with. Down, up, chuck, up, down, up, chuck, up. This isn't meant to be a chucking tutorial, but if you're having trouble with your chuck, a couple things that help me are to think about where my hand is hitting the strings as I stop the sound, as I strum across. And for me, it's in here, but I know for some people it might be a little bit more over here, or it might be a little more localized toward the front of your hand. You can try to adjust the angle of your hand if you're having trouble getting a clean chuck. I am really just feeling it like right here through here is where the strings are hitting my palm. And then also for me, if you start to tilt your instrument up, as like if you're looking down at your chords, that can be done unconsciously, it becomes harder for me to chuck cleanly. That may not be true for you, but for me, having my instrument kind of pointing straight ahead really helps me get a cleaner chuck. And if I notice it kind of slipping up, it starts to get a little messy. So that's another thing you can try. Also, if you're not chucking, you can just do a down, up, down, up. But I would try to hit the second down a little harder to approximate the weight of the chuck. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, chuck, up, down, up, chuck, up. And with a song like this, I really lean into the chuck and let the rhythm go a little loose. Because you kind of want this song to be a little swingy. It's not a strict rhythm kind of song. All right, so let's look back at the arrangement. See, that's your chuck through most of the song. I've got a couple little extra things that I do, and one of them is at the beginning of the song, after the riff, which I'm about to teach, but we'll do this first. That E7, I've written up here, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. There's that like opening strum into the chucking that I really like the sound of. So when I come off the riff with a chuck, just a single chuck, which is what this X means at the end of the riff, this X at the top here, I come off a single chuck and then I come up. The reason I start on the up is for the lift in the sound that I get, but also because I've just come off of that chuck, and that means that my hand is down and I want to come up. And so if I get my fingers into the E7 shape, which can be a little tricky to get that fast enough, then I can do that up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And that's the rhythm I do. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You're really leaning into those ups there a little bit. And there's another one of those, I believe. Let's see, do we do that at the end? Yes. At the end of the instrumental section, you're coming off the A, and then you're switching quickly to E7, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. In spite of all the... That's where the lyrics come back in. So those are the two places that that happens. And when you're coming off of that, you are going into the chuck, and that sounds like this. In both places, actually, because you're going into the same chord progression. It's a slightly different lyrics. But the first one up here at the top, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, in spite of all the danger. So you can actually wait to strum until you get to that A. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. In spite, yes, you start singing after the first one, which is what I've kind of written up here. After the first up, down, you start singing up, down. In spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be. It's really fun to kind of lean into that a little bit. So down here, it's the same thing again, because it's the same, almost the same lyrics, not quite the same lyrics, but all the heartaches in this one. So you're coming off the E7, up, down. Sorry, if I'm saying up, down, up, I can't also sing, Jenny. Up, down, in spite of all the heartaches that you made for me. So there's how you move out of that up, down, up, down, up, down, up, both times is the same, which is nice. Now let's look at the riff real quickly. We're going to put everything together in a couple of minutes. The riff, there's some red written in here because I discovered that when I first made this, I was taking riffs very literally, and I was trying to, especially on Beatles songs, I was trying to sort of figure them out on my own, put them on the fretboard, figure out how to play them. And I was playing this one all on the A string, but you don't have to do that. And in fact, there's a simpler way to play it, which is what the red indicates that we're going to go over. You could play this all on the A string. You start on your open A. These numbers, if you haven't read tab before, just correspond to what fret you're pushing your fretting hand down onto. For the strumming hand to pluck, the fretting hand pushes down on the fret that corresponds to the number that's written there. So open is no fret, and then 4, 5, 7, 7, 5, 2. I'll do the rhythm in just a second. 7, 7, 5, 2, chuck. So the rhythm of that is da 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 da, and then up, down, up, down, up, down. But there's an easier way to play that. I was really having a hard time with that for good reason, because it's hard to go from your 4, 5, 7 and then reach your finger all the way back to the 2. I have long fingers and I can make that stretch, and maybe some of you can too, but it's still not comfortable and it's not fast. So when I got a little better at playing, I realized, oh, of course, that note, that 2 fret on the A string is on my E string as well. And where is it? And you can kind of walk up till you find it. This is the note we're looking for. That's your 7th fret of your E string, which is why I've written it down below here in red underneath the 2. 7th fret of E is the same note as the 2nd fret of A. And so since we're already up in the 7 and 5 fret area, it's much easier to play 4, 5. And you could even figure out, let's see, it's actually 5. See, I didn't even do this, but you know, it occurs to me now. Oops. It's even easier to do this. You could do it on the E and the A string. 5. We could do 5, 4. Yeah, so I like that. So start on your 5th fret of the E string, but do it with your middle finger, so you have a finger ready to go to 4 of A, and then you can add your ring finger, or you can move your index finger up to the A string for 5 of the A string. Now we're over here with this, where the 7 is. 7, I'm reaching out with my ring finger, 7, 7, 5, and then I'm dropping my ring finger down, 7 on my E string. So that part, just the 7, 7, 5, 7, and you actually do that twice. And then you have to be ready with the chuck, and you have to be ready to slide your hand back into an E7. You could also choose to play that E7 further up the neck, which would bring you closer to that 5 and 7 fret. But since I didn't prep that for this transition or this lesson, and that's not how I played it in the actual cover that I did, I'll skip that for now. But you could choose to play another E7 shape that's not all the way back here at your 1st and 2nd fret, because that is going to be, you're going to need to move quickly to get to that. But I like that. I was trying to play it with my pinky there. I don't love playing with my pinky. Yeah, I like to move my ring finger or my middle finger up, so that my ring finger is playing the 7th fret both on the A and the E string. Now, this is not how I played it when I did my original cover. If you watch that cover, I played it all on the A string. So that's why it will look different if you're watching it. That's going to take some practice if you're not used to it. It'll even take some practice for me to get used to the easier fingering of it, because I was so used to sliding back and forth. And again, you can play it all on the A string if you like, but you don't have to. So that's how the intro riff works. Okay, so feel free to practice that as many times as you need to get that riff in place, or to skip the riff and just go straight into the song. And then the places where I have bolded chords, let me show you those. There's just a couple of them. In most cases in this song, when I put a chord on the page, you're getting a full 4 counts, and you're getting 2 chances, like 2 patterns of down up chuck up. So you see here where it says in spite of all the danger, that's 2 down up chuck ups. And then in spite of all the may also has 2. In spite of all the 1, 2, 1, in spite of all that may be. So most of the times you're going to do down up chuck up twice is what I'm saying. But when you've got the bolded chords, it's a half measure or a split measure, and the chords are going to change before 4 beats are up, which in this case it's going to be an even 2 beats for each of the chords, which is nice. In a lot of songs it works that way. And you're only going to have time to do 1 down up chuck up, and that's what I've written up here. Bolded chords get a half count of down up chuck up. So if you'll be true to me, D, and then 2 on the A, in spite, and that's actually a pickup. You start singing in spite of all the heartaches while you're still playing this last A from the stanza before, because you get 2 down up checkups for that last one. It's not bolded. So that is hopefully pretty clear here. Same thing in the instrumental solo. There are no bolded chords in the instrumental solo, which means that you can do 2 down up checkups for each of those. So let's just look at the instrumental solo real quick, because there's a little bit of a thing that I did that I didn't write out on this chord sheet that I can clue you into. It starts out, let's just play through it the way that it is written, and then I'll show you what I did on that middle line that makes it a little different if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, A. That's second A, A7. Second A7 to the D, stacking whichever way you like to the A, 2, 1, 2, E7, 2, and D, 2, and A, 2. So that is how it works with the way it's written out. I've actually sort of written it out for you there so that you can do the what could be considered half measures that are shorter. I've just written 1 E7 and 1 D and 1 A there down here at the bottom. They don't come in double, so you're not playing the down up check up pattern 4 times in those, you're just playing it 2. But what I did in the middle line here that you'll hear on the original cover, if you want to approximate that, is on the D and the A, I did your regular D, and then on the second half of it, like the second D, so 2 down up check ups on the regular D, and then I would move forward my ring finger to play a D suspended chord. So it's played 2, 2, 3, 0, and then I move it back. So you do, or you could do down up chuck up on. If there are 4 to split, you want to usually resolve back to the D. I would probably do one down up chuck up with the suspended shape, and then move it back to the regular. I don't recall if that's exactly what I did in the cover, but you can watch it and you can see how many beats I move my finger forward for. But I think I would have done something like this: down up chuck up, suspend, back to regular D. And same thing with the A. There's a really easy suspended chord shape for the A that involves putting your ring or your pinky finger, depending on how you're playing the A, on the C string 2nd fret. Nice chord sound, which you then want to resolve back to the A if possible. So I think I did down, a check, suspend, back. So I may have done something slightly different, but that's the shape that I was using. That's for the D, you just bring that finger forward to 3rd fret, and for A, you put a finger down, 2nd fret of C. All right, so that would be the sort of embellishment that was not written out on this chord sheet that I did. Anything else? Well, the very end is an easy tag ending with just an A, E7A, all with single down strums. I think that's the whole thing. All right, let's do a playthrough, and we'll see if I missed any elements I was going to tell you about, but that should cover everything. And again, there's no reason you need to play this like I played it. You can take whatever elements you like from this and you can change it. You could change the key. You could, do something quite different with it. And I encourage you to. I'm not saying this is how people should play this, but since I got some questions on how I played it, I thought I would share that. All right, so let's do this opening riff and go into the intro. We'll play the whole song. It's all on the screen there. We won't do it super fast because, you may be just trying this for the 1st or 2nd time, but also you can replay it as many times as you need to on the YouTube video, and you can change the speed. If you didn't know that, good YouTube trick is to click on that gear icon and change the speed to make it slower or faster as you like. All right, 1, 2, 3. I'm not used to the new fingering. Let's try it again. And I'll put the timestamp for the real one where I get it right in the timestamps. 1, 2, 3. It's live, folks. It's live and it's only now 9 a.m. All right. 1, 2, 3. In spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. In spite of all the heartaches that you made for me, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true. In spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. Here's the A of the instrumental section, 2, A7, 2, to the D, in spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. All right, so I did notice a couple things I hadn't talked about yet, so let's talk about them. One is that you could offset that rhythm in the last, that tag ending. could go slower on the A and then pick up the E7 quickly and do the E7 to A quickly. Or you could weight them all evenly like I just did in that playthrough. However you're feeling. Another thing that we didn't talk about is that I have been doing a little bit of a lift, starting with an up on that final A7 as I transition from the verse into the chorus. So what that means is when I do, if you'll be true to me, down, up, chuck, up, down, up, chuck, up, and then I go into another up, chuck, up. So I throw in an extra up as I move from the A to the A7, just for fun. I didn't even plan to do that. It was just something that happened intuitively as I was strumming, and it happens most of the time when I'm doing it. I might not do it every time, but again, it goes from the E7, down, up, chuck, up, down, up, chuck, up, A, D, A, up, chuck, up. So it just throws in a little bit more of like a sort of a, not jazzy, but a bluesy kind of shift into the chorus. So I did that both times. And then the other thing that I did, we didn't talk about, is the knocking, because you could do this differently, but the way that I did it, actually there's a knock down here too. You see the knocks continue into the verse, and I like that as a transition. Sorry, my highlight doesn't work very well on this preview. But basically, I'm going from knock, that's a single strum, and then I'm hitting the beats at knocking at your door, in spite of all the... So it's kind of like the offbeat, right? Because if you're doing one, keep all the other 2, 3, from knocking at your door, knocking at your door. You're doing not every single beat, but you're kind of doing every other beat. So that sounds like this again. I'll keep all the others from strum, knock, 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 spite of all the. So that last knock, I land on all the, but you could stop knocking after door if you need time to get set up to do your A. You could just do knocking at your door, in spite of all the, but I do like having that in spite of all the hang out there with like no chord under it. I think it's kind of nice. Sometimes you'll see that on a chord sheet as an NC or a tacit, but I like however you want to notate it. I like to not have strumming happening there, but you certainly could strum there. And if you're going to strum it, knocking at your door, in spite of all that, you just keep doing the E7. So if you're going to strum that instead of doing the knock, just keep going with the E7. All right, so let's do one final playthrough with the chords not on the screen. This way, if you want to look at something that I'm doing in my hands a little more closely, you can. Maybe I'll even tilt this down a little more. You'll lose the top of my head, but that's okay. So you can kind of see my hand on the whole body of the uk, and we'll see if I can get that. I didn't practice that alternate picking before I started doing this tutorial. Could you tell? It's really getting ready with the chuck that was throwing me off at the beginning. So that's something I recommend, is that you remember you've got a chuck and an E7 coming up, because that's a fast switch. All right. 1, 2, 3. I wasn't ready. 1, 2, 3. In spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. In spite of all the heartaches that you made for me, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. I look after you like I've never done before. I'll keep all the others, got ahead of myself, from knocking at your door, in spite of all the danger. I got excited. In spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. This is why people have video editors. the instrumental section. A7. Try to suspend it here if you want. And you give that little lift on the second chord. A7, D. Okay. In spite of all the heartaches that you made for me, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. I look after you like I've never done before. I'll keep all the others from knocking at your door. In spite of all the danger, in spite of all that may be, I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. I'll do anything for you, anything you want me to, if you'll be true to me. All right, I offset the beat on that last one that last time. So, small mistakes here and there notwithstanding, I think that went okay. It's been a while since I've revisited this song, although I did play through it before I filmed this tutorial. Clearly, a lot of this is just about practice, and that is the number one answer to a question when someone says, hey, how do I get XYZ to work on my ukulele? The answer is practice. And so if there's an element of this that's giving you trouble, drill a certain section, feel free to practice it with fewer elements so that you can really focus on the ones that you're learning that are new to you. Thanks so much for being here. I will hopefully have another one of these tutorials for you before November is up. Feel free to leave comments in the comment field. Feel free to leave comments of what you would like to learn next, especially if it's a song I've already covered that is in my play along songbook. I am having fun teaching these tutorials. Everyone I do helps me get better at doing them. And thanks again to my patrons who help me take the time to do these because otherwise I would not be able to. Thanks so much. And let's see, I will see you soon on the internet. Take care of yourselves. Let me know what you're practicing. And I look forward to the next time we play together, hopefully in one of our public play-alongs that I do for every month. Feel free to stop by on Zoom or YouTube and say hi in the chat. Bye, folks.